Good evening, sight friends. It's Mitty Man coming back at you again, Walker's Music. Word for the day, nighttime edition, Sunday night edition. About 12 minutes after 11. Mitty Man coming back to wishing everybody that hopefully they had a great weekend, had a great worship service today. For those of us that did get a chance to go out to the house of prayer, we are hoping that everything was well and that you did hear from the Lord. Mitty Man come back tonight, and I want to just add a little something to it. We're going to give a shout out to everybody. The whole gang, YouTube fam, End Time Harvest gang, also to the Blog Talk family, we're just giving everybody a shout out. I want to do something here, people. I want to go to the Word. Go to the Word of God. And I just want everyone to kind of come along with me for just a little while. And we're going to do some reading here. Let's go to the map. Let's go to the Gospel according to St. John. John's Gospel. And go to the 13th chapter of John. And I want to read a little something here. We're going to read. I tell you what. Let's start reading at verse number 33. That's St. John 13 and 33. Let's start reading that. And it says, "Little children, yet a little while I am with you. You shall seek me, and as I said unto the Jews, whither I go, ye cannot come. So now I say unto you, a new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another, as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you have love one to the other." May God add a blessing to the reader here, and especially the doer of his holy word. Now, people, what Jesus was speaking here was right before his betrayal, and perhaps this probably was spoken by Jesus at when they had prepared for the feast of the Passover on the night that he was going to probably be arrested. I feel that was probably the time that he spoke that, when he got up from the table and he washed the disciples' feet. He told them that the servant is not greater than his master. And he was telling them some things. He said, "Love ye one another as I have loved you." Now, people, he's not talking about the kind of love that most of us think that when we say love, some of us use that word so loosely. I don't even believe sometimes we know what it means. Love is what it does. It's an action word. And Jesus said, by this, all men, not some, but all men will know who you are by the love you will have one toward the other. Now, whom was Jesus talking to? He was talking to who? His disciples. Now, if we are disciples, true disciples, following Christ, therefore, this love that he was speaking of is what we should be showing one toward each other. Not backbiting, not trying to kill each other, backstabbing and talking about it one another back and forth. Now, that's not what Jesus meant. That's not what Jesus meant. And if we can remember, Jesus, even when John was in prison, John the Baptist, when John was locked up, and John had some doubt, John got offended because Jesus had not went to see John. And he sent messages to Jesus saying, "Are you the one, or should we look for another?" Jesus didn't get mad with John. Jesus did not get angry or upset at John. He understood John. Jesus was fully God, but yet he was fully human. He went through the same thing that we go through. In other words, this is how come he's such a great high priest to us, because there is nothing that we go through that Jesus didn't go through himself. He knows what time it is. So he got the sympathy, and he have compassion on us because he knows exactly what we go through as humans, because he suffered at every point, and he was tempted in every point that we are tempted. So what did Jesus do? Jesus didn't get mad or upset or angry at John. But he told John's disciple, the one that came to ask him, he said, "You go and you tell John the thing that you see. The dumb speak, the deaf hear. The gospel is preached to the poor. Go back and tell John, the blind receive their sight. In other words, Jesus didn't try to make no reputation. Jesus did not try to make them understand who he was. He said, you go back and tell John the thing that you've seen. You go back and tell John the things and the works that you've seen, and he should know who I am by the works. People, this is what it's all about. You don't have to worry. You don't have to break down nobody's reputation. Just stand back and watch the word. That's all you have to do. Watch the fruit. If you go outside and you see an apple tree bearing peaches, there's something wrong. You won't see that. If you know that's a freak tree, you better cut that down quick. A tree is known by the fruit it bears. So we as brethren, when we have love one toward the other, that shows the world that we belong to Jesus, people. That's what that just said, didn't it? That's what the word say. But now when you is backstabbing and cutting folk down and talking all that old nonsense and stuff about folk, you putting off a bad light. That's not representing Christ. That tells something about yourself as well. So now what I'm saying, Jesus told John's disciples, look, you go back and tell John what you've seen. In other words, he did not try to thin and prove who he was. He just told him, go back and tell him what you saw. Tell him that the blind receive the sight, the deaf can hear. The gospel is being preached now to the poor. You go back and you tell John those things, and that would automatically let John know exactly. They didn't have to look for another. For Jesus was who he said he was. Always will be who he said he was. And one day, he's coming back again to receive his own to himself. You know, I be looking on the net, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to finish it up for the night. I see people yet arguing about the times and the way things are going to be. No need for all that, people. But if you can't believe, I mean, really, if people do not believe what Jesus say, what make you think they're going to believe you or me? Even though in the book of Matthew, Jesus said himself in 24th chapter, around the 36th verse, somewhere along there, 31st, 36th, I'm not for certain. But I know it's Matthew 24, Jesus himself that was talking to his disciples. He said that just immediately after the tribulation, then you shall see the sign of the Son of Man that's going to appear in the cloud. And even after all of this, you still got people arguing. Even after what Jesus said, you got people saying it's not going to happen that way. So it doesn't make any sense to argue with people. If you argue with Jesus, I ain't no sense in me even saying a word. So I'm just saying, let us be what Christ said. Let's love ye one another and show the kind of love that we have one toward another. That way everybody will know that we are his disciples. Because believe it or not, people, we all are letting off a light. We are all illuminating some sort of light. And I will say this here, as I think our brother P.P. Drone that once said, I know I've heard him say this here more times than Caden, brother L.A. You know, error can be transferred as well as knowledge. So we always got to be alert of that, people. Look, don't use common sense. Use common sense. Some things that should be obvious. Yes, error can be transferred as well as truth. So we must be very, very careful about that. Do what Jesus said. You know the tree by the fruit it bear. And every man shall reap what he sow. In other words, what you plant, it will grow. Remember that next time you start planting seeds. With that being said, this is Middy Man saying whatever you get into, if God is not in it, the best you come out of it. This is Middy Man saying peace. Good night.